I'm Alison McConnell. Welcome to PLZ Soccer's predictions for the season that lies ahead. And no big surprises here. I think it'll be Brendan Rodgers' Celtic team who go on and win the league. I think Celtic will finish in top position. I think they've got enough. I think we've seen all the noise and arguments and the frustration and disappointments over the transfer window. I think it's fairly clear that Rodgers himself would have liked reinforcements. I think fans are very frustrated about the failure to get more players in over the line. But I think when you look at the squad that is available to Celtic, they should have enough to go on and retain that title that they have won so far. I think it's 13 out of the last 14 titles. I don't see that being threatened hugely this season, although I do think that it's a Rangers side that should be capable of asking questions. I don't think that there will be anyone who's capable of splitting the top two, and for that reason I think it's Rangers who will finish second. I think Russell Martin has spent a lot of money so far this season in the window. You're looking at the guts of £30 million. I think they will definitely mount a title challenge, and albeit that I suspect Celtic will prevail, I think it will be much closer than what we have maybe seen in previous campaigns. Third place, I'm going to go with Hearts. I think I've been impressed so far by what Derek McInnes has done at Tynecastle. I think even without playing particularly well in the opening weeks of the campaign, I think they've managed to get off to a solid start, lay fairly solid foundations, and I think what they've done so far in the transfer window has been impressive. I really like the look of Claudio Braga. I think there are reinforcements there. I think they've got a bit of depth. I think there are still maybe some question marks in certain areas of that squad, but I do think they've got enough to go and claim that third place this season. For me, in fourth place, I think it will be Hibs. I think David Gray's side, again, a very impressive campaign last term, started fairly well, a fairly solid start. We saw what they've done in Europe. We saw what they've managed to do across the window so far in recent weeks. I think they might just finish narrowly behind Hearts, but I think they'll be in fourth spot so far this season. Fifth place, I think I am going to go for Dundee United. I think Jim Goodwin has had a decent start again to the season. I think again, a lot of recruitment over the summer, all these different nationalities. However, they appear to have gelled fairly quickly. The games that I've seen of them across the opening few weeks of the campaign, I've liked what I've seen. I think there's a bit of energy about them. I think there are goals in the team. I think they will be my fifth choice. Making up the top six, I think, will be Aberdeen. It has been a fairly fraught beginning for Jimmy Tillene's side. No points on the board so far, no goals so far. However, a very strong finish to the transfer window, and I think they will come good. I don't know that they're going to manage to really go and fight at the top end of the table. I think I don't think they'll be in third, fourth spot. I think, but I do think they are good enough to go and get top six. I think that then brings me to Motherwell. I think they will maybe just narrowly miss out on the top six. However, I fancy that it will be a fairly impressive season from the Fir Park side. I've been impressed with how they've started. I think a very clear identity about how that team wish to play. I think, again, recruitment has been impressive across the summer. I think you can see that they want to play an attacking level of football. I think it will be easy on the eye. I think it will be enjoyed by the Motherwell support. However, I do just wonder about maybe the vulnerabilities that they have defensively. They've obviously brought in Stephen Welsh on loan from Celtic. That might help in that respect. However, I think they might just miss out on top six. St Mirren too, I think, might just miss out again, and for St Mirren fans, that might be a bit unpalatable given the fact that they've made top six across the last three successive seasons. I'm always impressed by Stephen Robinson's side. I think how they set up, they punch above their weight. I think over the course of a campaign they can be fairly consistent. I do just wonder if maybe it's going to the well too many times. I think they might struggle to sustain that kind of form again this season. Next up, I think I'm going to go for Kilmarnock. I think Stuart Kettlewell's side Again, a fairly solid start across the opening weeks of the campaign. I did have question marks when they lost Kyle Vassell. I think they've managed to come in some kind of, there's an element of physicality about the players that they've recruited over the summer. I don't think they'll be in any trouble at all this season. I think they'll be fairly comfortable. I just don't think they've got quite enough to go and challenge for the top 6 positions. Next up, I'm going to go for Livingston. I think David Martindale's side can generally find themselves as the favourites to go down when it comes to relegation talk. I think they've got enough to stay up. I think he's mixed it up a bit with the players that he's brought in. I really like Lewis Smith. I think he adds a bit of quality. I think we've already seen that across the opening weeks of the campaign. And I think also you're seeing quite a different kind of Livingston. It's not just maybe the hit and rush and the physicality that we've spoken about in recent seasons, and I think they will still be in the top flight come next season. Then I'm going to go for Dundee. I think Stephen Presley has his work cut out in trying to keep the Dens Parkside, just keep the head above water. I think he would have wanted to bring in more players before the closure of the window. He may be able to do so in January if they find that the situation is getting a bit perilous. However, I just think that they might get dragged into that relegation dogfight down at the bottom end of the table. And finally, my tip to go down is Falkirk. I just think John McGlynn's side have done particularly well, the back-to-back promotions coming up into the top flight. However, I just think that it's maybe a step too far this season. I think it is a championship team who will come up and try and hold their own in the top flight, and I think they may well struggle as the campaign goes on. So those are my tips for this season. Come back in May and you can remind me how many we got right and perhaps more interestingly how many we got wrong.